name's Emoni Howard. I stay on 27th and Arapahoe, and I was born in Compton, California, and removed from my mom's home by CPS and went to stay with my dad when I was 9.5 years old because my mom was on drugs. And my daddy took us in, and when my daddy took us in, he raised us pretty much. It was like I was never with my mom, it felt like to me. And so over the years, pretty much, he kept my head straight. When I was 7, I started doing drugs and stuff, and I drank, and I snorted, I popped, I pretty much did everything except shoot up. And pretty much when I was, that was because my uncle and my grandma was raping and beating me for 5 years. And when my dad came, it was like a savior came of some sort. My daddy was my hero. So then when he got me straight over the years, but not too straight, because he didn't even know about my drug habit or depression or anything, because I didn't talk about it, because being in that environment when I was a kid, I just figured if my family was the one that did this, I couldn't rely on anyone. So then when I turned 19, I just threw it all away. I threw my drugs away, I threw my alcohol away, I threw everything away because my daddy started getting sick. He started having strokes. So then I began the long range of taking care of him for almost 3 years. So then, at the end of those 3 years, at about 2017, pretty much, that's when things started to get rocky. Really 2016 for me started to get rocky, and in 2016 my aunt passed away from a triple bypass on the operating table, and my brother had made an awful decision to end his life. And so me and my uncle, my daddy's twin brother, I call him Dad too because he looks the same, me and him walked in there, and he was sitting in a puddle of his own blood. And then my uncle was pretty old. He had a heart attack, and I didn't know who to help first, so I was faced with that, and my uncle didn't survive that, so my daddy was impacted more, and he had a couple more strokes. And around this time, around 2017, pretty much, he couldn't move his legs anymore. He couldn't do anything. Pretty much I had to brush his teeth, wipe him, give him a shower, everything that we could do and take for granted that we can do and think that's just normal, he couldn't do anymore. So I did that, and I had a baby. His name is Drayton Scott Howard, and pretty much 2017 might have been the hardest year of my life because my daddy died in the same way that his brother died. He had a heart attack, and I tried to revive him, and he wouldn't come back, so I was like, he led a good life, and he's happy now. He's probably somewhere fishing. But that's kind of what started my homelessness in a way, because my daddy, I had quit my jobs. I had 2 jobs while I was pregnant, and I had quit them both to take care of my daddy because he needed more help. So then after he died, it kind of went on a slope. While dealing with his funeral arrangements and stuff, one day I had made the choice to get a babysitter, and it was the wrong decision, I found out. And it just so happened that part of my family knew the babysitter, which was my cousin, and my cousin and the babysitter shoved a Tide Pod with OxyClean down my son's throat because they wanted to see what would happen. and there was a whole big investigation on it, and they finally found the footage, the video footage down there that she tried to hide. She tried to bury it, and because she was a licensed babysitter, you have to have footage when you're taking care of children. So I lost my son July 30th, really, and then I had to cut him off of his life support because the doctors had mentioned to me that the OxyClean part had bleach in it, so it was kind of burning his organs. So I had to make the tough decision to not be selfish because I wanted to keep seeing him and keep holding him, but I had to make the decision on his benefit, and I went ahead and cut the plugs off, and I buried him on his first birthday, which was August 10th. And that kind of led me into a deep depression and everything, but I still tried to not give up because of the thought of my son and my dad together. I really thought of it, and I was like, well, if my dad was still here, he would want me to keep going, even though I didn't feel like it, because there was times when he was still here, I didn't feel like going because of my childhood and the trauma that I went through. So then when I got the urges to cut or to just end my life, sadly, I thought of him more and more, and I started getting back on track. I moved from Las Vegas, and I decided to move to Colorado to get a fresh start, meet some new people and different stuff, and try to begin to learn how to reassess my life without my dad's guidance, because he's always been there, and try to think of what my life would be like, because I was supposed to be a mom. So going through the depression, thinking that I was just a failure as a mom and a daughter, which I still do to this day. I really do struggle with it. Basically, I was okay, and then it turned out that I had 2 ectopic pregnancies, so I missed some work. And at this time, I had an apartment in Arizona before I moved here from Las Vegas. I moved from Las Vegas to Arizona, and then when I was in Arizona, I got an apartment, and I was doing okay. I was working. I had 2 jobs. I was keeping myself kind of busy. I went to counseling and everything, and in Arizona they didn't have much opportunity, and I really wanted to kind of pace myself in a way that I would try and work on my self-esteem and depression a little more. I always want to take a step forward, anything that I do. So I moved down here to Colorado to get more opportunities, and it just so turned out that I was robbed one day, and I got my ID stolen, and there was nothing I could do because I missed work hours in Arizona. The apartment I was staying at, I got evicted from because the rent was $650 and I only had $625. She took my money, and a week later she evicted me anyway. So I have a small eviction on my record, and it is not easy to get an apartment with an eviction on your record. Some people, they just don't want to hear what you have to say. They don't care what happened. All they care is that you have an eviction on your record. So when my ID got stolen down here, my opportunities were cut more in half, like a half of a half, because 1, there's an eviction on my record. 2, I don't have an ID to do anything with, and 3, I'm still working. I work at Toco Bell. I get pretty good hours and stuff. It's just I'm at a standstill because no ID, pretty much. But I'm looking into a lot of different stuff now that will allow me to get my ID, so I'm working on that. Meanwhile, this is my tent, and this is where I live for now. It's hard out here because of the fact of harassment, of the fact of food when we need it, toiletries, finding the proper needs and necessities that a normal person would have if they were doing well. And I'm working on it to get out of this situation through not only Initiative 300 to try and move things along, but I'm also working on it as far as working extra hours at my job and working with Coalition of the Homeless so that they can help me get my ID and talk with me about housing and get me doctor's appointments. And I'm working on my mental health and everything that I'm supposed to work on so that I have the okay thinking that I need to, and I have my head on straight, because you can't do anything without your head on straight. I'm working on it to be able to get out of this situation